Good afternoon, everyone. I, Sadra Shanaz, Assistant Professor, Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, Integral University, Lucknow, would like to welcome you all in this session of our value-added course entitled Ancient History from the Purview of Civil Services Examination. I hope you all are taking advantage of this course. Topic for today's lecture is Vardhan Dynasty. Yesterday we talked about Harshavardhan. Now we can Vardhan Dynasty culture and civilization. There did not occur any significant change in the culture and civilization of India during the period of Harsha. The tradition and values which were established during the Gupta age continued during this period in all spheres of life. Social condition, the fourfold division of the Hindu society in castes continued to be effective. Of course, sub-castes were also emerging. The caste system was getting more rigid, though interdining and intercaste marriage were possible. The downward trend in the position of women persisted during this age. The practice of sati was getting encouragement, though restricted only to higher castes. There was no parda system, but there were several restrictions on the movements of women in society. However, public morality was high. People pursued a high, simple, and moral life and avoided consumption of meat, onion, and liquor. Uh, when we talk about economic condition, in general there was prosperity within the empire. Agriculture, industries and trade, both internal and external, were in a flourishing condition. Cities like Peshawar and Takshila in the northwest were of course destroyed by the invasions of the Hunas, and Mathura and Patliputra had lost their previous significance. But Prayag, present time Prayagraj, Banaras, and Kannauj were prosperous cities within the empire. Mm. When we talk about religious condition of this period, the Hinduism, Jainism, and Buddhism were still the popular religions in India. Hinduism was continuing its popular hold on the people, and temples of various gods and goddesses were built in large numbers. Vishnu and his different incarnation and Shiva were the most popular gods of the Hindus. Prayag and Banaras were the main centers of Hinduism. The popular sect of Buddhism was Mahayanism. Its main center were Kashmir, uh, Jalandhar, Kanyakubj, Gaya, and Svetpur. Nalanda was the primary center of Buddhist learning, and its university had gained fame far and wide. Jainism was also quite popular in different parts of India. Thus, all the three religions of India uh, coexisted with a spirit of mutual toleration. Though Hinduism was the predominant religion at that time also. Uh, what was the religion of Harsha? The religion of Harsha, give Ban Bhatt describe him as a Hindu Shaiv. While Hain Song stated that he was a Buddhist, it seems that he was a devotee of Shiva and worshipped the sun as well during the early period of his life. However, during the later period of his life, he was attracted towards Buddhism. He is said to have erected many Buddhist stupas and monasteries. He summoned a convocation of the Buddhist monks annually for discussion of religious problems. He prohibited the slaughter of animals and medicines to the slaughter of animals, and like Asoka made arrangement for the free supply for food and medicines to the poor and the destitute. But Harsha was never a convert to Buddhism and continued to worshiping Shiva and Surya even during the later period of his life. Thus, he practiced tolerance of every faith. Harsha used to have a religious assembly at Prayag every fifth year. He had six such religious assemblies during his reign. These assemblies were proofs of his tolerant religious views. Buddha was worshipped on the first day of each such assembly. Shiva was worshipped on the second day, and Surya was worshipped on the third day. Harsha distributed money and articles generously to all people on each day, and on the fourth and final days, he used to he used to give even his personal clothing and ornaments in charity, and request his sister Rajasri to give him something to cover his body. Uh, Harsha also called an assembly at Kannauj in honor of the Chinese pilgrim Hien Song. The assembly was presided over by Hien Song, and religious discourses continued for 21 days. It was a favor to Buddhism and Hien Song. His infuriated a section of Orthodox Hindus, which also resulted in an unsuccessful attempt on the life of Harsha. However, when the assembly was over, Harsha honored both Hindu priests and Buddhist monks by giving them many things in charity. Thus, Harsha was a religious minded man and a tolerant king to all his subjects of different faiths. Uh, Now we come topic on education and literature. Uh, Harsha himself was a scholar and wrote three plays entitled Naganan, Ratnavali, and Priyadarshika. As Sanskrit was the popular and predominant language at that time, he wrote these plays in Sanskrit, and each of them has received wide acclaim from Indian scholars. Besides, Harsha was a patron of learning and scholars. It has been said that he spent one fourth of his income on education and learning. He patronized the Chinese traveler Huen Song, while Ban Bhatt, the celebrated author of Harsharit and Kadambari, and scholars like Mayur, Divakar, and Jai Sen were at his court. The universities of Nalanda, Vallabhi, and the one run by Divakar in Vindhya Forest were centers of learning at that time. Among them, the University of Nalanda was the most celebrated, where students and scholars from all parts of the country as well as from foreign countries gathered from education and learning. Nearly 5,000 students receive free education there. It was not only the center of learning of Buddhist studies, but also of Hindu texts and religion. The university was patronized by Harsha. Thus, Harsha helped in the growth of learning and education during his age. According to Sardar K. M. Panikar, India was the most educated country at that time. Uh, Indian culture in foreign countries. Indian culture continued to spread in foreign countries during the period of Harsha, while the Hindu religion increased its popularity in the countries of Southeast Asia. The Buddhist monk and scholars went as far as Tibet and China for the propagation of Buddhism. Among those who went to China, Kumarjiu, Parmarth, Sabhakar, and Dharmadev uh, were the most prominent, while among those who went to Tibet, Sant Rakshit, Padma Sambhav, Kamal Ashik, Sthirmati, and Buddhikirti were the noted ones. These scholars translated Buddhist texts in the local languages of the people and thus formed a solid base for the propagation of Buddhism in those countries. Thus, both Buddhism and Hinduism made progress in different foreign countries. An estimate of Harsha, uh, we talk about Ban Bhatt and Huen Song have described Harsha as one of the greatest rulers of northern India. Many modern historians have accepted their version and have therefore concluded that Harsha was the last great empire builder of Hindu period, and his death marked the end of all successful attempt to restore the political unity of India. But Dr. R.C. Majumdar, though recognizing him as a powerful ruler of northern India, is not prepared to accept him as one of the last empire builders and Hindu rulers of India. He writes, it would be quite wrong to assume, as many have done, that Harsha was the last great empire builder in the Hindu period. He argues that many empires rose and fell both in the north and the south in the next 5 centuries after the death of Harsha. In the north, the empires of Lalitaditya in Kashmir, Yashovarman at Kannauj, and Ganga and Karma of Kalchuri dynasty were not less than the empire of Harsha in the extension of territories, while those of Pala and Pratihara dynasties uh, were certainly more extensive and proved more durable than the empire of Harsha. In the south, that Rajputa kings Dhruv and Govind III, the Chalukya ruler Vikramaditya VI, and the Chola ruler Rajin certainly established for extensive empires than the empire of Harsha. Thus, according to Dr. R.C. Majumdar, it would be an act of injustice to Indian history if we accept Harsha as the last empire builder of Hindu India. However, Dr. Majumdar accepted many virtues of Harsha. He writes, while therefore it would be idle to pretend that Harshvardhana's reign constitutes a distinctive age or marks an epoch in uh, Indian history in any way. We cannot withhold out tribute of praise and admiration which is due to him as a great ruler, a brave military leader, a patron of arts and letters, and a man of noble impulses and distinguished personality. The opinion which has been expressed by Dr. Majumdar is based on facts and therefore is now widely accepted. Harsha was a brave ruler and possessed qualities of a practical statesman, which helped him in establishing quite an extensive empire in northern India. He succeeded his brother when the kingdom when the kingdom of Thaneswar was one of the few other equally powerful kingdoms of northern India, and its position was quite critical on the northwest and the west. He had enemy states, while in the east, Devgupta of Malwa and Shashanka of Bengal had succeeded in killing Grahavarman, his brother-in-law, and Rajvardhan, his brother, and had occupied Kannauj. Under these conditions, his own kingdom was not secure. But Harsha took bold steps and pursued an aggressive policy. He entered into diplomatic alliance with Bhaskar Varman, ruler of Kamrup, occupied Kannauj, and finally succeeded in occupying Bihar, Odisha, and West Bengal. He fought against the ruler of Vallabhi, which ultimately resulted in an matrimonial alliance between the two and helped in strengthening his position in the north. However, his effort to penetrate in the Deccan was checked by Pulkesin II, the Chalukya king of the south. Yet Harsha succeeded in creating the most powerful and extensive empire of his age in northern India. And we have to hesitation in accepting him as one of the empire builders of northern India. Harsha was a capable commander, but certainly no military genius or a great conqueror. He did not succeed much against Sasank and was defeated by Pulkesin II, while the friendship of Vallabhi ruler was bargained by entering into matrimonial alliance with him. Therefore, Harsha cannot be regarded as a successful military commander. So, of course, he was respected by his neighboring rulers, both friends and foes, who certainly did not dare to attack his kingdom, but on the contrary, decided to befriend him. Harsha was certainly a capable, scholarly, and tolerant king. His subjects were happy and prosperous under his rule. Personality supervised the details of administration, worked hard for the welfare of his subjects, and certainly succeeded in it. He was a generous king who used to distribute even his personal belongings among his subjects at his assemblies at Prayag. Of course, his administration was not as much successful as that of the great Guptas or the Mauryas. It succeeded in maintaining unity, peace, and order within the frontiers of his empire. Harsha was a scholarly king and patronized scholars, education, and learning. He wrote three scholarly dramas, honored all scholars his kingdom, and patronized even the Chinese traveler Huan Song. He patronized learning. The famous University of Nalanda became a great center of learning and education because of his active support and protection. Harsha was also very much tolerant in religious affairs. During the later period of his life, he was certainly more inclined towards Buddhism. Yet he never failed to show his respect for Hinduism and provide equal justice to all religions. Therefore, Harsha has been regarded as a capable ruler and has been assigned a respectable place among the rulers of ancient India. Yet he was neither the last great empire builder nor a great emperor of ancient India. Harsha failed to provide that unity and emotional integrity to his empire, which could have succeeded in the establishment of a great and enduring empire in India. Therefore, his empire broke up soon after his death. Thus, the success of Harsha was personal and proved short lived, which proves that he had the qualities which would have succeeded in providing an enduring progress and unity to India. That is why he fails to be ranked among the great emperors of India. So, of course, he has been rightly accepted as the great ruler of his own time. Now we talk about Hain Song and his description of India. The Chinese traveler Huan Song visited India during the period of Emperor Harsha. When he went back to China, he wrote a detailed description of India during the reign of Harsha in his book Siyuki, or record of the Western countries. His description has been accepted as the best available source of knowing the administrative, social, and cultural condition of India at that time. However, his account of India is not entirely dependable. At several places, it is confused, while mostly it is biased because Hien Song used his description as a means to glorify Buddhism and Harsa as its follower. The primary aim of the visit of Hien Song to India was to gain knowledge of Buddhism and collect its religious texts, as he did not get the permission of the Chinese emperor to visit India. He slipped away from there in 629 AD. He crossed the desert of Gopi, visited several places in Central Asia as Kashgar, Samarkand, Balkh, and reached Afghanistan. He met and found worshippers of the sun, a large number of Buddhist monks and followers, stupas, and monasteries at different places. From Afghanistan, he reached Takshila via Peshawar. The journey from China to India was covered by him in about a year. Then he stayed in India for nearly 14 years. From Takshila, he went to Kashmir and then visited several places in India like Mathura, Kannauj, Sravasti, Ayodhya, Kapilvastu, Kusinagar, Sarnath, and Vaishali, Patliputra, Rajgiri, Bodh Gaya, and Nalanda. He remained at the University of Nalanda for about 5 years. He then proceeded to Bengal and visited South India as well as far as Kanchi. He had been a guest to Bhaskar Varman, ruler of Kamrup. From there, he was called to the court of Harsha. Harsha called a religious assembly at Kannauj to honor him. Hansong presided over the assembly. He also participated in one of the religious assemblies called by Harsha at Prayag. After that, he left India in 644 AD through his through the same route by which he had entered. He took back many images of Buddha and copies of different Buddhist religious texts. When he reached back China, he was received with honor by the Chinese emperor. Then he wrote the description of India at the instance of the emperor. Song described the city life of India. The information we gathered from his account was that the houses were of varied types and were constructed with wood, bricks, and dung. The city streets were circular and dirty. Many old cities were in ruins, while new cities had grown up. Prayag was an important city, while the importance of Patliputra was replaced by Kannauj. Sravasti and Kapilvastu had lost their religious importance. Instead, Nalanda and Vallabhi were the centers of Buddhist learning. Song described Kannauj as a beautiful city. He described that Indians use cotton, silk, and wood for their garments, and these were of varied types. He described Indians as lovers of education, literature, and fine arts. Yeah. According to Song, Indians received education between 9 and 30 years of age, and in certain cases, all their lives. Mostly, the education was religious and was provided orally. Many texts were put in writing, and their script was Sanskrit. Debates and discussion were the most important means of providing education, and also that of establishing superiority over the rebels in knowledge. Song praised Emperor Harsha and his administration very much. He described him as a laborious king who traveled far and wide and contacted his subjects personally to look after their welfare and supervise his administration. According to him, Harsha used to spend three and a fourth of the state income for Three by fourth of the state income for religious purposes. He described that the kingdom was well governed, it was free from revolts, there were few cases of law breaking, offenders were given physical punishments and tortured as well to extract the truth from them, while the traitors were given death sentence or turned out of the kingdom. The burden of taxation was not heavy on the subjects. They were free from the operation of the government services and were thus happy. The state used to record its every activity. He, however, described that traveling was not very much safe at that time. The main source of income of the state was land revenue, which formed 1 by 6 of the produce. Song described that Harsha divided his income into four parts. One part of it was spent on administrative routine of the state. The second part of it was distributed among government employees. The third part was given to scholars, and the fourth part of it was given in charity to brahmanas and the Buddhist monks. Hensong wrote that the army of Harsha consisted of 60,000 war elephants, 1 lakh strong cavalry, and 50,000 strong infantry. He described Harsha as a perfect devotee of Buddha. He agreed that Hinduism was more widely popular in India at that time as compared to Buddhism. Song described that social condition of India in detail. He wrote the caste system was rigid, there was no parda system, and women were provided education. However, the practice of sati prevailed. In general, the common people were simple and honest. They used simple garments and avoided meat, onions, and liquor in their food and drinks. They observed high morality in their social and personal lives. The rich people dressed well, lived in comfortable houses, and enjoyed all comforts and amenities of life. Song also wrote about the economic condition of India at that time. He gave a long list of Indian fruits and agricultural products. India produced the best cotton, silk, and woolen cloth at that time, and prepared all sorts of garments from them. He praised very much the equality of Indian pearls and ivory. The Indians prepared and used all types of jewelry and ornaments. He wrote that India had a brisk trade with foreign countries and there were prosperous city ports on its sea coast, both in the east and the west. India exported cloth, sandalwood, medicinal herbs, ivory, pearls, spices, etc. to foreign countries and imported gold, silver, and horses. Song described India as a rich and prosperous country. Thus, Song has given such a detailed description of political, social, religious, and economic life of India as has not been given by any other Chinese traveler. The description certainly helps us in making an assessment of the conditions of India during the reign of Emperor Harsha. However, historians do not accept his description as entirely dependable because he wrote with a positive bias for Buddhism. Therefore, it needs to corroborate it and checked with the help of other contemporary sources. The successor of Harshavardhana. Emperor Harsha left no successor to his throne. His empire was divided among his nobles and provincial governors, which brought about the destruction of the Vardhana Empire. Now we come the topic the description of the Chinese traveler It Sing. Yeah. After Hin Song, many other Chinese travelers visited India during the later half of the 7th century AD. The greatest among these later travelers was Itsing, who studied at Nalanda for about 10 years and remained in India between 673 to 688 AD. Yeah, primarily, Itsing came to India as a pilgrim, and his main purpose was to visit religious places of Buddhism and also to collect or copy Buddhist texts. However, his description of India also helps in finding out the political and cultural condition of India during the later part of the 7th century AD. There was not much time gap between the visit of Hain Song and Itsing. Therefore, a description of the two do not differ much regarding Indian condition. Itsing wrote his book entitled A Record of the Buddhist Religion as Practiced in India and the Malay Archaeology. He described that in India, disciples got their education while living with their teachers. Moral education was an important part of it, and among the texts, mostly they studied grammar of Panini, Buddha Charit of Ashwaghosh, uh, Kashikavrati, and Brihat Harisastra. He praised the sense of cleanliness among the Indians and described that morning and evening walks were regarded by them as good for health. He described the different garments used by the Indians. He also praised the knowledge of the Indians in Ayurvedic medicines and the methods of treatments of sickness. Singh wrote that the Indians called themselves Aryan, while their popular name in Western countries was Hindus. He wrote in detail about the organization of Buddhist Sanghas in India, while his political description of India is mere. Now come topic uh, tripartite struggle. Tripartite struggle between Pala, Pratihara and Rajputas. We first know about importance of Kannauj. Kannauj, situated in the Farrukhabad district of Uttar Pradesh. The importance of that city in ancient times was probably due to its strategic advantages. The city is stone and a cliff on the right bank of the Ganges. This part was actually then the highway of commerce and communication. Kannauj, a convenient center of the river traffic in the upper Doab. Observation by Alexander Cunningham reference ancient geography of India. The situation is a commanding one, and before the use of cannon, the height alone must have made Kannauj a strong and important position. R.S. Tripaঠি's view reference history of Kannauj. Uh, Kannauj was the witness of the rise and fall of mighty empires, the appearance and disappearance of successive dynasties. Although this fascinating panorama of events chiefly unfolds itself during the centuries that intervene between the decline of the Guptas and the Muslim conquest. With the passing away of Yashovarman and Lalitadit, no great power or political personality arose in northern India, and for nearly half a century, it offered a most tempting field to every ambitious political adventure. In that context, in the 8th century, the main political powers like the Palas of Bengal and Rajputas of South and the Gurjara Pratiharas of the West involved into a conflict. The Rajputas had wrested the political power from the Chalukyas and established themselves as the ruling dynasty in 753 AD. Two powerful rulers of this dynasty was Dhruv and his son Govind III sent strong military expeditions to extend their powers in northern India, and brilliant, though temporary success attended their efforts. Uh, we talk about the Pratiharas and the Palas. Their chief adversaries in the north were the Pratiharas. On the other hand, in Bengal, Gopal was succeeded by his son Dharmpal, who ruled over about 40 years. He was a man of dynamic personality and really achieved a lot in his lifetime, as the work of consolidation in Bengal had already been done by his father Gopala. Dharmapala found himself in a position to undertake foreign expedition. Shortly after the accession to the throne, Dharmapala was involved in a tripartite struggle between the three chief ruling powers of India. Problem of discussion about the struggle. First, we have we R.C. Majumdar's view. Uh, Reference History of Bengal, volume first. It is difficult to follow the exact course of this struggle in strict chronological order, as a few isolated facts knows to us from the inscription of the three dynasties are capable of different interpretation. View of DC Sarkar, reference Kanyapurj God struggle. It was actually a quadruple struggle. Ayodhya dynasty of Kannauj was one of the important powers of contemporary India. Sarkar shows that the Indrayud of Kannauj was a powerful king. Now we can see sources. Pala inscription, copper plate inscription. Copper plate inscription first Khalimpur copper plate inscription, Munger copper plate inscription, Bhagalpur copper plate inscription, and Jagjivanpura copper plate inscription. Now we come pillar inscription, Badal Prasasti, and Eologistic inscription. Pratihara inscription, Daulatpur and Bada. Rajputa inscription, Sanjan inscription, and Sirpur inscription. Uh, Literary sources, Ramcharit by Sandhyakar Nandi. Now the struggle is start. We can talk about phase one. Uh, The fight between the Palas and the Pratiharas was the natural consequences of the imperial design of both these powers. Dharmpal inherited a consolidated and powerful kingdom and began to expand his dominions towards the west, where the political situation was admirably suited to his ambition. We talk about phase one. Vasraj, the king of the Pratiharas, also felt the same urge of imperial ambitions and utilized the same opportunity by pushing his conquest toward the north and east. In the light of subsequent events, one might safely conclude that the possession of the imperial city of Kannauj was the common objective of both, and the contending parties probably came into clash somewhere in the Doab. Vatsraj defeated Dharmpal in a battle somewhere in the Gangetic Doab. Rajputa intervention. Intervention of the Rajputa's king Dhruv. He inflicted a disastrous defeat upon Vatsraj. After defeating him, Dhruv evidently marched through his dominions right up to the Doab. Here he met Dharmpal and defeated him. Dhruv was too far away from his base to follow up his victory, and there were probably other causes to induce him to return, to turn back. Uh, we talk about result. We can see a favorable situation for the Palas on phase one. It is rightly contended by R.C. Majumdar that Dharmpala had gained more than he had lost. While the Pratihara dynasty lost heavily, Dharmpala did not lose much. The Rajputas not only crushed the Pratiharas, who were the rivals of the Palas, but also offered a golden opportunity to the Palas to add to their strength by their quick withdrawal from northern India. Dharmpala took full advantage of the situation and by a series of victorious campaigns made himself the lord of practically the whole of northern India. Now we talk about tripartite struggle, phase second. In the second chance, Dharmpala defeated Indraj or Indrayudh, the ruler of Kannauj, deposed him and uh, in his place, but Chakrayudh on the throne of Kannauj. We get the information about the victory from Bhagalpur inscription, Munger inscription, and Jagjivanpura copper inscription. The Royal Darbar at Kannauj. Uh, Description from Khalimpur inscription. After this victory, Dharmpala held a darbar at Kannauj. This darbar was attended by a large number of vassal chiefs and the names of the rulers of Bhoj, Matsya, Madra, Kuru, Yadu, Avanti, Gandhar, and Kira are mentioned in this connection. We are told that these chiefs not only approved of the action of Dharmpala but also bowed down respectfully with their diadems trembling. Geographical situation of these powers. Gandhar represent the western Punjab and lower Kabul valley. Madhya was in central Punjab. Kira, Kuru, and Mats represented Kangra, Thaneswar, and Jaipur regions respectively. Avanti represents the whole or a part of Malwa. Yavan represented some Muslim territory in the Sindhu Valley. The Yadu or Yadava had settlements in Simpura, Mathura, and Dwarka. Probably Berar or a part of it was ruled by Bhujas. Significance of this victory. It cannot be contended that these states were annexed by Dharmpala. It only means this that they accepted his suzerainty and were left undisturbed in their internal affairs as long as they paid homage and fulfilled the other conditions. Dharmpala became the paramount lord in northern India, and no wonder he is called uh, Uttar Patha Swami, Uttar Patha Swami, or Lord of Northern India. But it was temporary. Dharmpala had to meet another challenge. Now we come on phase third of tripartite struggle. Nagbhat II, the Pratihar ruler, conquered Kannauj and drove away its ruler Chakrayudh. As Chakrayudh was a protege of Dharmapala, a war between Nagbhat II and Dharmapala became inevitable. A pitched battle was fought probably near Munger, in which Nagbhat defeated Dharmpala. Nagbhat II was not destined to enjoy the fruits of his victory for a long time. He was himself defeated by Govind III, the Rajput ruler. Now we talk about significance of this tripartite struggle. Soon after this victory, Govind III left for the Deccan, and thus northern India became a free field for the military ambitions of Dharmapala. The success of Nagbhat II was merely a passing phase, and Dharmapala remained a mighty king till the end of his life. Devpala, source Badal inscription composed by uh, Dar- Darbha Pani and Kedar Mishra. Description of Badal inscription. Devpala got tributes from the rulers of the whole of northern India, from the Himalaya to the Vindhyas, and from the eastern to western ocean. His campaigns took him to Kamboj in the west and the Vindhyas in the south, exterminated the Utkalas, conquered Prag Jyotish, curbed the pride of the Hunas, humbled the rulers of the Gurjaras and Dravidas. Opinion of Abdul Mumin Chaudhary reference dynastic history of Bengal. The description of Badal inscription is actually related and similar to a traditional idea of Indian Empire and an idea of Uttarpat Swamin. But it is also true that Badal inscription is actually related and similar to a traditional idea of Uttarpat Swamin. But it is also true that sorry for interruption, network issue. We talk about the description of Badal inscription is actually related and similar to a traditional idea of Indian Empire and idea of Uttar Swamin. But it is also true that Huna kingdom, Prague Jyotis, Kamboj, Utkal were situated in the border area of the empire formed by Dharmapala. So Devpal could try to conquer those regions. He himself stated about Kamboj and Vindhya expedition in one of his copper plate inscription. Uh, we are told that as soon as the armies of Devpal under Jaipal reached near the king of Pragjyotis, made surrender without fighting against the invader. Likewise, the king of Utkala left his capital and ran away. Some scholars argue that the Utkalas were defeated by a combined force of Kamrupa and Gauda. The Hunas had many principalities, and one of them was in Uttarapath near the Himalayas. That was conquered by Devpala. From there, Devpala proceeded to the Kamboj uh, territory, but according to Abdul Momin Chaudhary, if we remember about the Shahi rulers of Punjab, then we can say that it is impossible for Devpala to conquer Kamboj region. The kingdom of Rambhadra, the Pratihara king, who was son of Nagbhat II, was invaded by Devpala and he was defeated. King Bhoja also was defeated by Devpala. But in the Gwalior inscription, it is stated that Deopala was defeated by Bhoja. Chaudhary argued that in the initial stage, Deopala was defeated, but later Bhoja was defeated by Deopala. Deopala had to fight against three generations of the Pratihara rulers, and in spite of difficulties, he has he was able to maintain his supremacy in northern India. In general, it is said that the Dravidas seated in Badal inscription were actually the Rashtrakutas. It is also said in Munger copper inscription that the territory of Devapala was extended up to Rameshwar. But in an inscription of Rashtrakuta king Amogh Varsha, it is stated that the Rashtrakuta king conquered Bengal, but it is difficult to accept that Devapala was defeated by the Rajputas. R.C. Majumdar argued that the Dravid Nath stated there was actually Pandya king Srimar Sri Vallava, but Nihar Ranjan Rai opposed him. This he probably did in alliance with all those states who regarded the Rajputas as their common enemy. Uh, it is actually difficult to reach in a decision about that matter. Deopala, patron of Buddhism. Deopala was a great patron of Buddhism. He gave five villages for various comforts of the Bhikshukas as well as for writing the Dharma Dharmaratnas and for the upkeep of a Buddhist monastery built there by Balputra Dev, king of Swarnadip or Sumatra or Yavbhumi or Jav. Devapala constructed many temples like Trakutak temple and monasteries like Sompur. Art and architecture received a first impetus. Nalanda continued to flourish as the chief seat of Buddhist learning. Evolution of Deopala. Sometime after 806 AD, the Rashtrakutas defeated the Palas. The Pratiharas took advantage of this and extended their power to the east. The Palas lost Magad or South Bihar for some time. Even North Bengal came into the hands of Pratiharas. The subordinate chiefs under the Palas revolted. The Sheludhavas established themselves in Odisha. So it can be said that Deopala became successful as a conqueror, but he failed to consolidate his empire, and as result of that, the empire started to be declined after his death. Contemporary feudal nature and decentralizing factors were also responsible for the decline of the empire. But it can agree with R.C. Majumdar's view that the reigns of Dharmapala and Deopala constitute the most brilliant chapter in the history of Bengal. Uh, we talk about the tripartite struggle after Deopala. Deopala was succeeded by uh, Vikrapal. Some scholars regard him as his nephew and others regard him as his son. He ruled over about 3 or 4 years. After that, he abdicated began to live the life of an ascetic. Vigrahapal was succeeded by the Narayan Pala. He ruled for more than half a century. He was a man of pacific and religious disposition. Sometime after 806 AD, the Rajputas defeated the Palas. The Pratiharas took advantage of this and extended their power to the east. The Palas lost Magad or South Bihar for some time. Even North Bengal came into the hands of Pratiharas. The success of Pratiharas weakened. All the more the Palas. The subordinate chiefs under the Pals revolted. King Harjara of Assam took up imperial titles. The Shailod was established themselves in Odisha. It is stated that for a time the rule of Narayan Pal was confined to a part of Bengal again. However, he is stated to have recovered North Bengal and South Bihar from the Pratiharas about the year 908 AD. This was done after the defeat of the Pratiharas by the Rajputas under their king Krishna II. It is also possible that Narayan Pal was defeated by Krishna II. Before his death in about 908 AD, Narayan Pal was able to establish his supremacy in Bengal and Bihar. Uh, Analysis. After that, all the three powers became weak and then declined. We can see some features of the tripartite struggle. All the powers were not local and they fought against each other to establish supremacy over Kannauj. Finally, the Pratiharas became partially successful, but after the long term war, all the powers lost their potentiality to survive. So there was no final result, but the political and economic significance of tripartite struggle was very important. For the continuous war, they had to maintain big army, and so that the tax was very high. We can easily trace some rebellions against the rulers. Some scholars like R.S. Sharma identified the Kabarth rebellions during the Pala period as a peasant revolt. All the contemporary powers became dependable on the Samantas. That was their weakness. After some time, the Samanta kings became powerful and caused the downfall of the big powers. On the other hand, the unnecessary war weakened the dynasties, so that in North India we do not see any powerful empire in the later period. At the time of Muslim invasion, Indian powers became unable to protect themselves. So, in conclusion, we can say that tripartite struggle was a war without gain for the powers. Now the session is open for question answer round. Any question? Session is open for question answer round. No question. Any question? In chat box? No question. Now the session is closed for uh, question answer round. Okay, thank you.